What lies beneath the surface of the life of Jesus is not merely a story. It is a revelation that reshaped human evolution. To understand this, we look toward the work of Rudolf Steiner. He approached the mystery of Golgotha not as a myth, but as a spiritual pivot in humanity's path. Steiner believed that early human beings experienced a kind of dreamlike awareness. This was not imagination. It was a different type of perception, deeply linked with the cosmos. In that ancient consciousness, humans could interact with higher spiritual beings. These beings didn't teach through words. They transmitted wisdom beyond time. That wisdom had depth, but it lacked one thing. It never explained the meaning of birth or death. Why? Because to those early humans, these concepts had no true significance. The soul did not fear death. It did not even recognize it as an end. Over time, the human mind changed. Consciousness moved away from the divine. It began to focus on the material and the mortal. And as this shift unfolded, the mysteries of death and birth began to haunt human thought. This new awareness came with a cost. The connection with the spiritual diminished. People began to see themselves as separated from spirit. The physical world became dominant. And with it came suffering, doubt, and the fear of death. Steiner recognized that the ancient cosmic teachers never prepared humans for this shift. They could not provide answers about life and death. So when that time arrived, something new had to intervene. Something greater had to descend into the human experience. According to Steiner, that intervention was Christ. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, a living being who entered this world for a purpose beyond doctrine. He came not to make life easy, but to awaken the soul to its forgotten power. The Christ revealed that we are not bound by the body. We are not slaves to suffering or the grave. We are spiritual beings inhabiting a temporary form. And through this truth, he pointed the way to true freedom. This is the core of the mystery of Golgotha. Through incarnation, Christ entered fully into the cycle of life. He lived, he died, and he rose again. In doing so, he grasped what even divine beings had never known, the full experience of human suffering and death. This act wasn't just about sacrifice, it was a bridge between the divine and the human. By passing through death, Christ opened a spiritual pathway back to the eternal. Now, humanity could begin to understand what had once been hidden. The teachings of the risen Christ did not remain confined to words. They emerged through experience, through presence. His disciples knew him not by studying, but by remembering his living essence. The first followers passed these truths through voice, not paper. This oral tradition carried a power that modern institutions eventually lost. As religion became formalized, the deeper knowledge slipped away, but the echoes remained, buried beneath centuries of interpretation. Steiner believed that the early Christians had a unique relationship with the risen Christ. They felt his essence. They knew that birth and death were not barriers, but thresholds, and that through Christ, the soul remained untouched. Over time, these teachings fragmented, yet the heart of the message endured. Christ's incarnation and resurrection granted a new perspective on existence itself, a perspective that sees beyond the grave. Steiner devoted himself to exploring this transformation. He examined how the human body, over time, became denser. As this happened, the soul's perception dimmed. The physical began to overshadow the spiritual, and the eternal became harder to reach. Still, something remained. A divine thread woven through time. To reconnect with it, Steiner argued, we must look beyond physical knowledge. We must seek a higher form of perception. The mystery of Golgotha was not just about Christ's suffering. It was about the awakening it initiated. By entering death, Christ lit a spiritual flame in humanity. That flame continues to burn, guiding the soul toward salvation. To grasp this mystery, Steiner urged us to move past surface understanding. He said, stop relying only on earthbound knowledge. The truth lies above the material world. Only by engaging with divine wisdom can we begin to comprehend what truly happened at Golgotha. It's not just about belief, it's about inner knowing. Through that knowing, the soul gains strength. It gains clarity in the face of mortality. Steiner explored the contrast between modern and ancient spiritual paths. He reflected on the wisdom of the Yogis. Not the modern practitioners, but the ancient ones. These sages had a direct link to nature. They accessed higher truth through rhythm, breath, and harmony with creation. Through these methods, they reached beyond the veil of the material. They experienced the spiritual directly. But Steiner pointed out, these experiences were not equal. Some paths only offered illusions, fleeting insights. Only a few reached true perception. To do so, one had to cultivate deeper forces within the rhythmic and metabolic system of the body. These pathways to perception require discipline, intuition, and a purity of intent. Steiner taught that there are two valid ways to approach divine knowledge. One is through imaginative vision and inspiration. The other, through a concealed awareness tied to the body itself. Both reveal aspects of truth when approached with sincerity. Early Christianity preserved aspects of this wisdom. The sacrament of communion, for example, was more than a ritual. It served as a tool, a way to remember the eternal nature of the soul during the earthly journey. Rituals like this connected the material with the spiritual. They were bridges, not performances, and through them, humanity kept its place in the cosmos, at least until these rituals lost their deeper meaning. Steiner even examined the work of Nietzsche. He contrasted Nietzsche's drug-influenced philosophy, especially in Zarathustra, with Christ's spiritual path. Nietzsche searched, but lacked the inner light. Christ offered knowledge grounded in sacrifice and presence. The Church preserved parts of this truth, but much was obscured through layers of dogma. Steiner believed that anthropology could recover what was lost, not to create a new religion, but to deepen understanding of the original truth. True Christianity, he said, does not require reinvention. It only requires awakening. The teachings of the risen Christ already hold everything we seek. We don't need new belief systems. We need to return to the inner wisdom already present. Philosophy plays a key role here. Through deep contemplation, the human being reconnects with ancient truths, not through theory, but through direct inner experience. This is how we understand the being of Christ and our own connection to the divine. The mystery of Golgotha was not just historical, it was cosmic. It gave humanity the power to recognize that the soul never dies. Death became a doorway, not an end. Christ's resurrection did not just end suffering, it shifted our position in the universe. We were no longer bound to the earthly cycle. We now had the potential to enter a new cosmic destiny. In Steiner's final analysis, Christ's presence does not belong to one faith. His sacrifice is not a doctrine. It is a nourishment, a spiritual force that feeds the soul from within. To encounter these hidden teachings, one must go inward, not just to believe, but to know, to feel the thread of eternity that Christ reawakened, to see through the veil and remember who we truly are.